but I knew I wanted more in life for my husband and for my two girls, and for our family. I just wanted to do so many more things.
Hey, it's Heather Chauvin, wife, mother of 3 boys, former social worker, breadwinner, recovering hustler, and stage 4 cancer survivor. I'm not a fan of that term, by the way. Beyond all of these titles and labels, I'm a human being, just like you, attempting to navigate it all while feeling good. My goal on this podcast is to show you that you can live an energized, sustainable life, both at home and in your work. It doesn't matter if you stay at home full-time, if you work from home, you're a CEO, a successful business owner, or trying to find some inspiration. On this show, I attempt to keep it real with stories, interviews, and random thoughts. This is not a business or career podcast, and it's not a parenting podcast. It's both and so much more. You will laugh. You may even cry, and you may even get a little frustrated with the truth you've been hiding from yourself. I believe all human behavior is a language, whether it's through your child's behavior, your health, or a relationship. And when we learn to listen instead of react, we begin to understand what it truly means to feel alive and in control. It's time to put your big girl pants on and find your brave. Let's go. All right, Miss Cindy, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
We're recording this kind of during the early stages of the holiday break. So I showed up in my robe. I don't even know. Oh, I do have a bra on. But this is like walking by my kids and they're just sprawled out naked on the couch. And I'm like, this is freedom. This is freedom. And yet we overcomplicate it. And yeah. So I wanted to have this conversation with you because you were somebody who, came to me, started working within the mastery group, and you wanted something and you went for it. So I just wanted to talk to you about that because too often people think we can't have what we want and desire. So maybe a little bit about what got you here.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things that got me to this point. But I had met you officially face to face at a retreat I was in June. And I feel like at that point in time, I wanted so much more in life. And I signed up for this retreat so late. I remember springing it on to my husband. And I'm just like, I have to meet Heather. There was something about this retreat that just was like, I need to meet her because I just know that there's something inside of me. And I probably couldn't even put it into words what I was feeling, but it was kind of like that burning belly desire of wanting to do something more. And so when you showed up and you made us write down our top 50 things we wanted in life, all of a sudden the things that were coming out on that paper, I was just like, oh man, I didn't even know I wanted these things, but I knew I wanted more in life for my husband and for my 2 girls. And for our family. I just wanted to do so many more things. So we had, I jumped on a call with you literally on a whim. Like, I think I just thought, you know what, I'm going to just jump on. I'm sorry, backtrack. I signed up for your what was that?
Oh yeah. Understanding your child's behavior.
Understanding your child's behavior. And it was a game changer for me. And then I'm like, okay, my light bulb had turned on and I was like, it's time that I start working more towards myself.
I love that. I didn't know that you knew me before the retreat.
So I knew who you were through a mutual friend, Megan Rempel, and I knew her and knew through you. And I had started listening to your podcast because she had mentioned one time, she's like, I think you should really start listening. And so the time she mentioned it, I wasn't ready. And I think I wasn't ready to really realize that I needed to work on my relationship with my kids and my husband and I's relationship with our kids. And then all of a sudden I started listening to your entrepreneur mind and what you had to say about women and really lifting each other up. And then all of a sudden it was just like, I need to meet you. And so when I knew that you were going to be at that retreat, I was like, I got to go. I need to meet you. And I really need to see what you're all about.
Love it. And this is such a representation, to remember that people are watching us even when we don't think people are paying attention. I mean, it's very easy to get in our heads. But I always think about how the impact we're making without making an impact, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that, because I think as you know, I'm a huge advocate for leadership, right? People come to me like, oh, can you teach me how to build a business? Can you teach me how to do this? I'm like, yes, but at the core of that, you are a leader. And it doesn't matter if leadership in your home, leadership in your workplace, even if you work at home, like from home, we are a leader, and we don't realize that our energy and the thoughts that we think and the belief systems that we have and how we show up in the world literally affects every human that we come into contact with. So how has like doing this work, and how has it shaped and shifted how you show up as a mother, as, an employee, as a wife?
Yeah. So really, I wanted to, I work in corporate. I have two little busy girls. I wanted to show up and be present in both. Like my ultimate goal was when I'm at work, I want to be at work. And when I'm at home, I want to be at home. And I just want to be present. That was the biggest thing that I was really finding, that I was not present either place. I was finding that I was distracted. I could be distracted easily at work, but I could be easily distracted at home. And I was missing out on things. And I really needed to decide that I was going to focus in and give it 100% wherever I was. And my biggest feeling is I just wanted to feel that alive feeling when I was with my kids, and really feel like I was confident as a mom. I was confident that I was helping them lead their best life. I know that's kind of a cliche word that we're using anymore, but I wanted them to really be leaders in their own lives and not me controlling every single move they were making. And I think that was one of my biggest struggles, is I was wanting to control so much with them. And then I was forgetting that, I was trying to control them because I wasn't controlling what was going on with me. And that was my biggest thing. And when I finally had that realization, and then I was like, I need to step back and really start working on myself.
What does that mean though? Because, okay, I'm very open that mom is in control means controlling you, not controlling the external world. And we can hear this again and again and again. And I'm sure you've heard me say that before. So what does that mean? Like when you hear it now, how are you like, yes, like with certainty, conviction, and then knowing what to do? Because I think that's where people get stuck, right? They're like, okay, I know I'm controlling. I know I just can't help myself. I don't know how to kind of shift it and focus it on me. So what was that for you?
Yeah. So it was a lot of personal development and really working on like my own self-care, and really it like kind of coming up with a better morning routine for me, even though I had a good morning routine, but really making it a non-negotiable for me. It was really about, when that alarm clock goes off in the morning, I get up out of bed because I'm waking up on my own terms. It like, for me, it goes back right to the first minute I wake up and get out of bed, because I was allowing myself to get woke up by the kids and start to really feel that, as soon as all these little demands, right, first thing in the morning. So now I have a really solid morning routine. And actually, my husband and I joke a lot about how sacred it is. Like nobody's allowed out of bed until mom's had a good hour to herself. But I wake up on my own terms at 4:45 every morning. And I really go in through, checking, doing some journaling about how I'm feeling and things that are, I've got either a mind block on, or even journaling about maybe something that didn't go 100% the way I was hoping the day before, or things that I can improve on. I just kind of journal, and I strive to do 3 pages each morning, or 4. and really just kind of and sometimes it's more creative, like, what is it that I want to do? Or, what is it that I hope for? Or my big dreams, or my to-do list. It's anything in the morning. And then I really concentrate I spend 20 to 30 minutes a day or 5 days a week kind of moving my body. It doesn't have to be hard physical, but it could be something as much as, yoga, which, I have a love-hate relationship with yoga, but I know how great it is for me. So, but anything like that. And then, I meditate, not every day. I'm not as good at meditating, but I try 2 or 3 or even 4 times a day. Mm-hmm. And then it's really, when I'm done all of that, we have our day planner that is kind of our guide for our family. And it's something that has turned into like kind of a brain dump on things that need to get done, but also everybody's schedules are in the day planner. So we just know. So awesome. When I started really getting this process under control, I started feeling like I was relinquishing some control on other things in my life, because I had already really carved out and made boundaries for things that were so important to me, and absolute musts of things that needed to get done. So I'm really intentional. That's probably something else that my husband and I have really started to work towards, is being like very intentional of things that we want to do, and things that need to get done, and then things that maybe we need to let go, that we just don't have the time for.
I love this. So I want to talk about the husband thing for a second, because that's a number one question I get is, I'm on this personal development path. How do I get him on board, or my partner on board? Just to clarify, because if somebody's listening, and you said I try 1, 2, 3 times a day. I know you meant a week for meditation.
Oh. Yes. Sorry.
Just so that, and I knew what you meant, but I'm like, if someone's listening and they're like, what? I'm like, no, it's a week, not a day. You don't have to meditate 4 times a day.
Yeah. That's the progress, not perfection on that one for me.
Not even that. It's like, it's so fluid, right? Like when I started, I was so strict with all of this. And now people are like, well, what's your routine? And I'm like, it literally looks different every single day, where I will go through periods where, well, like I said to you, I'm like, I'm in my pajamas, where I went through periods where, oh yay, I get to work from home. I'm just going to work from home in my pajamas all the time. And I'm like, you can go down a slippery rabbit hole very quickly. And the clothes that you put on your body, everything really shows it's your energy, right? So sometimes it's like we need to give ourselves a break. And then other times we need to push ourselves to show up a little bit more. And I know before our conversation, you said, you were like, yeah, I made sure I was dressed, my hair was done, so I felt more confident while I was doing this. But realizing everything that we do is energy. So let's talk about your husband for a second. So number one question I get is, how do I get my husband on board? How do I get my partner on board? Because every relationship is different. And whether it could even be someone, you could be divorced and have 2 different households, and you don't have control because your partner doesn't live with you, but you still share children. And we're going to have other caregivers as well that are in our children's lives. So tell me about that process as well, just by becoming and relinquishing control, how it is affecting your relationship and how he's parenting as well.
Yeah. So such a great question. And I get this a lot too. I'm really fortunate that he is so supportive of me and anything that I have desired to want to do. From back to when we had a 2-year-old, going back and getting my master's degree, which made me travel into Toronto, Ontario every other week. So he was solo parenting, to moving up in my career, to anything. I've been very fortunate, but it hasn't always been that easy. But I think our number one thing is that we are very good at communicating each other's needs, or what we need from each other. And especially as our kids have been starting to get older, really making sure that we ask each other for help. That was one of my biggest things, is I was trying to do everything myself, and then realizing that I just couldn't do it. and I needed to ask for help where I could see fit, not only with Dennis, my husband, but also with all the other caregivers in our lives, with, daycare providers and all of, teachers and stuff. What you need to be able to communicate your needs. So we have been very good at, right down to like meal prepping. It's a team effort. So we pick our meals out. We make sure that what we need is in the house. We prep our meals. We make sure it's on the fridge so that we can all see it, what we're having. And then he will start it. So he makes sure things get out. So it's really a team effort. But what I always found worked with him is I don't spring things on him. I sprinkle the thoughts and let them kind of flourish a little bit.
Ooh, I like that. I don't spring things, I sprinkle.
Yes. And it might not be, because I'm a very much like, I will dive in, but he very much needs to think about things a little bit more. So for instance, we need a new fridge. To me, it's like, let's just go buy a fridge. But for him, it's like, oh, I need to sprinkle that idea, and we need to go look a couple times, and then we'll purchase. And that's just the way he operates. And I do not, when there's big things, we schedule time in to talk to each other. Okay, when the kids go to bed, I really need to talk to you about this. And we try to limit those big conversations to when our kids go to bed, so that we're focused on the kids. But those are some of the things that that we've really worked on over the last. We've been married 10 years, really trying to work on our communication and making sure that's 100% there. And we don't communicate over text message or whatever. I mean, the odd thing like who's picking the kids up or whatever. But big conversations happen face to face.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is it takes effort. Consistent effort and constant sprinkling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Is there a particular time, moment, or example that you can give where you really noticed that, I'm going to say the old Cindy would have tried to control or fix the situation, and now you're allowing it to play out differently?
Oh, yes. When it comes to the kids, our kids were put on this earth to really make us grow and challenge us. And we have two very strong-willed little ladies in our house. And the old Cindy would have wanted to control every little moment of tantrum or, not doing things or, dressing a certain way. And I really had to, my husband does the morning routine. I leave for work early. So he does the morning routine, and I've really had to relinquish control into allowing him to manage that himself. Mm-hmm. And, there's times where I know that it's a struggle because, I have one that is, can give us a good run for our money, and we love her just the same. But, sometimes in the morning when you're trying to get out and we both have jobs that we need to get to, emotions can run high. But I had to decide to step back and let him manage that morning routine the way he seen fit, and be there as a support for him when he needed me, when he asked for it, and not put my 2 cents in, which I would always do when I wasn't asked for it. So that was one of the biggest things that I really had to work hard on, to wait for him to come to me when he needed something.
So how do you deal with that? Because I think that's a great example of somebody living the, kind of the motto of mom is in control, because she is feeling in control, or she's dealing with her own emotions, right? Because it's really uncomfortable when we're seeing people challenged and we're like, oh my gosh, if I just did this, I could solve the problem in 2 seconds. And then I just want to go rescue and fix. But then you're creating this habit and this pattern of let's run to Cindy or let's run to mom every time there's an issue. And we're not actually empowering other people because we're doing the work for them. But sometimes when we're changing these behaviors, the problems get worse before they get better, because we are no longer enabling or, diluting or fixing that. So in that moment, how do you handle your emotional shit that's coming up when you're like, oh my gosh, like the stories, right? The thoughts that are coming up. You're like, I just want to fix this. Oh, he's going to ruin our girls. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, so I really spent a lot of time journaling every morning about how the morning, was going to roll out. And I really had that thought process like, maybe I should switch my work schedule or whatever. I had all those thoughts. And then I thought to myself, no, like he is, a great parent. He loves these girls and he will come to me when he needs, something to bounce off of, board to bounce off of, or whatnot. And I remember just saying to him, "Hey, I'm here to talk whenever you need to, and I will create that space for him when he was ready to come and talk about it, and really kind of letting him figure it out." And for me, I had to walk away with knowing that they were in capable hands. They are loved. They are so fortunate to have a dad that loves them so much. He will do what's best for them and just kind of, decide that when he was ready and if he needed some help or guidance, then I would be there for him. But I can't be everywhere at every moment. And I had to be okay with that. And, as it's starting to come up, bouncing off my accountability partners, oh, I'm going through this, and just reassuring that, I am doing the right thing, but having those people in your life that you can also go to just to kind of bounce off that idea.
I love this. Okay. So now life, because I know coming in, part of what you wanted to create in your life was a career, or not a career, doing something on your own terms, right? Business wise, work wise.
Yeah.
How, think about, you kind of alluded to this, but I want you to think about like 6 months ago or whenever we met. And too often I hear people going, I want to start a business. And I'm like, okay, dive in, let's do the work, right? And then they're like, oh shit, I have more work to do before I can start a business. And this is where I see people failing all the time because they're buying into something and they're hustling and they're burning themselves out. What do you think is the foundation of taking that leap? And do you feel more confident now to do that? Like where do you feel you are on that journey?
Yeah, so I felt as I started really diving into my own shit and my own stuff that was going on, all of a sudden these layers were starting to kind of peel off of me, if you can kind of envision that, and more confidence and just really being okay with I'm not running, but I'm each day I'm doing one thing to further myself and really just taking kind of messy action as I'm starting to move through this process. And really at the end of the day, just being okay with where I am, but knowing when I need to kind of level up and knowing when I'm stuck at resistance, like when I'm just resisting the process, and really working through that and kind of having the confidence in myself to know that there's more to be done, and I just need to start taking one action step a day.
What does resistance look like for you? How does it typically show up in your life?
Yeah, it shows up in a few different ways. It shows up in avoidance, avoiding my home office. It shows up in me getting sick. I'm not one that gets sick very often, but when I am resisting something, I tend to find that I'm actually usually get sick, and then it takes a little while to get over.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but yeah, avoidance is my biggest thing, and I avoid my home office, and that's when I know I'm really resisting something because I will resist just the area in my house. I won't go near it.
Were you aware of that previously, or have you gotten more awareness to like what that looks like?
Oh, I've gotten much more aware of what that looks like. I didn't even know what resistance like, I wouldn't have thought I was a resistor. So as I was going through this process, and I really kind of look back on, I look back on the month of October when I did probably the most amount of resistance. That was my biggest light bulb moment was, wow, how much I avoided just sitting down at the computer and working on things that really bring me a lot of joy.
How do you work through that now? Like when you catch yourself, or do you challenge yourself to do something regardless?
Yeah, I do really challenge myself. I put things in my daytime, like I schedule actual time for certain things
Mhm.
and really keeping myself accountable to my day timer. But I also keep myself accountable to a couple accountability partners. Like, here's my weekly goals and here's what I'm going to produce. And I want you to call me on it if I don't, and ask me why I didn't do it. Because usually if I'm making goals, it's attainable. Now there are times where, life throws you a curveball,
Mhm.
but for the most part, really, really reaching out to those other people to hold me accountable too.
I love that. Okay, so people always ask, I'm sure you've heard this before, but people ask about where do you find the motivation? How can you hold yourself accountable? Do you think this is something, do you think it's a personality trait? Do you think it's something that people, just get tired of their own bullshit eventually? But how would you answer that question of where do you find the motivation to keep challenging yourself or pulling back those layers?
That's a really good question. I'm not a big believer in motivation. I think motivation comes to anything that you want and you desire. But I don't think anybody, like for me, I just have that desire, I think, to want to do more with myself.
Mhm.
And so when things start to creep in, I actually go back to my big 50 list of what I want. And that is I have it kind of wrote down. So I really focus on what is it that I want in life and what is it am I going to have to do to get there. And those are the things that really start to move me in the right direction. And I know when I've talked to you times, maybe when I am struggling, you might say to me, well, how are you going to get there? And then it's all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm going to start working towards this action because it's going to further me in this action. So I
Mhm.
think it's kind of more how I put the pieces of the puzzle together versus like sitting down and I'm not sure what that motivation feeling, I guess maybe an adrenaline, I'm not sure, but for me, it's more of a puzzle piece.
Yeah, it's almost like we ask these strange questions as society, right? Like,
Yeah.
where do you find the motivation? And I remember when I started personal development in my business, I would wake up and go, oh, I'm not motivated to work today, therefore I'm not going to. And then you don't get to anywhere that you want to be. And when you're really pushing through something, it's about doing the uncomfortable action regardless of how you feel, because for me it's typically before I start the action, and then once I start the action, especially if it only takes 10 minutes, right, it doesn't have to be a big thing, you get this momentum going, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can, it's like you're butting up against that belief, like that limiting belief, and you're kind of proving it wrong. And then I notice I wouldn't say motivation, but the momentum starts to create, and it's easier to get it going.
Yeah. And honestly, I just find like if I can get one baby step in, all of a sudden the creative juices start to flow or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like for instance, this morning I did one tiny action and then all of a sudden, like 30 minutes later, I was still working on something and I was so productive. And I'm just like, oh, and you all of a sudden kind of get that like feeling of, wow, like look at this great thing I just created. And then it kind of is like, okay, well, what next can I do? Right. So it's like it's building on taking those little micro actions to have, such a great output.
Yeah. And it's kind of overcoming that all or nothing mindset, because when you
And,
have this all or nothing, you forget the importance of those micro action steps.
oh yes. And that would have been that's a big thing that I had to kind of overcome and let go of, that it's not just all or nothing. It's, those little baby steps and doing one thing more than I did yesterday in the right direction.
I love this conversation. Okay, so last question I want to ask you, or last conversation I want to have, is around this notion of I don't even want to call it, we can call it burnout, we can call it whatever you want, but I see a lot of women actually leaving corporate to start their own business because they're craving freedom and they're craving quote unquote balance. And behind the scenes, I've been speaking at a lot of corporations and having a lot of conversations with people. And I'm like, guys, it doesn't, or ladies, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't necessarily have to leave your job, sell everything, move to Bali to get a break. And again, it's kind of this all or nothing mindset. And I know you're a big advocate for this, of really, because you're in HR, is that what it is?
Yes.
So really supporting people from the top down on, how do you want to feel when you're working? And so what are your perspectives on this whole, burnout epidemic, or this, the more you work, the better it is epidemic?
Yeah, I have a strong belief that, burnout is something that we all need to really take a good look at in our own lives, and really look at what is it that's going on in corporate, but what also is going on at home. And I find a lot of times that, burnout, quote unquote, is something that's just tossed around. That actual phrase is tossed around a lot, and really taking a good look at that individual on what is going on with them, and really diving deep into it. Because, I would say that was something that when I started this journey, that was something that I really looked at, creating boundaries and creating things in my life that served me, that worked for me, that helped me align both in corporate and at home. And those were things that I really had to look deep inside of myself, and really kind of look at our family as a whole, on what was serving us and maybe what we needed to reevaluate. But also looking at your job, what is working and what's not working, and kind of looking at different areas to really kind of look at how to align better. And those were some of the things that I've spent a lot of time kind of working with, for not only for myself, but the people that I work with, looking at different ways that we can carve out different times, or block out times, or different things that just help to alleviate some of those pressures that they're feeling.
Cindy, how do you want your girls to remember you?
Oh, such a good question. You could make me cry. I really want them to see me as somebody that really has left no regrets, and who has went for everything, even if I don't succeed in everything, but in my eyes, I've succeeded because I've not left anything unturned. I really want them to see that you can have life in corporate, but you can also be a great mom, and you can have both. It's going to take some work, but you can be both. And those were things that I want them to know, that they have a cheerleader in their court at all times. Whether it might not always be me, but they always have somebody in their court at sporting events and whatever, cheering them on, because they are so loved. But I also want them to know that mom is going for all of her dreams and doing things to help create a life for the four of us that is an unbelievable life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Any last parting words for the ladies that are listening?
No, I just thank you so much for having this opportunity to chat with you. It's been so great.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
According to a study published on Fast Company, conducted at the University of Kansas, women are burning out at an alarming rate, even before having children. And that number rises with the additional responsibility of raising a family. And the gap between ambition and putting themselves in a position for promotion isn't going anywhere. Why, you ask? The world needs more empowered mothers, women who are willing to unlearn everything that they've been taught, women who are courageous enough to feel good and not feel guilty for it. I am living proof that you can feel alive, energized, peaceful, and put yourself on your own damn to-do list and make an even bigger impact in your children's lives and those around you. I want to show you how to think, how to act, how to behave, so you can step into that version of you that has been screaming for your attention. And the best part is, all you have to do is take the next step and invest 2 minutes of your time and book a complimentary call with someone on my team to see if my community and coaching is the right fit for your big vision. The relationships you desire, the money, time, and energy that you know deep down you are capable of creating. So head on over to heatherchauvin.com/let's talk. That's Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/let's talk. LETSTALK. And take the next step in the right direction. You are here because you were born to make a difference. Taking a stand for how you feel means you are taking a stand for how your children show up as adults. You've got this. Let's go.